there's lots of sensors, right? I mean, we've got sensors everywhere. Many industries are actually primed for using sensors. Manufacturing is a good example. We were talking about construction, being in construction trade show. A lot of those equipments that they use have sensors to check, temperature and amount of time it's been running, all kinds of, statistics that's important for the organization. And I've read some studies that said, there's going to be, a couple of trillion sensors by 2020 all around the, across appliances and all the different industries. So we've been talking to, one of our customers, Cherrylake Tree Farm. They've been an Acumatica customer for a long time, and we explored some opportunities around, what type of sensors we can bring, into the farm, right? And then having the data come into Acumatica, what we could do. So I want to bring Josh Ackerman from Cherrylake Tree Farm to join me on stage. Josh, welcome. Thanks for being here. Have a seat. So Josh, it's great that we've been spending some time on this project for the last few months, and excited to get started on this. So tell us a bit about Cherrylake Tree Farm before we dive into the IoT project.
Yeah, so Cherrylake is an agriculture company. We have about 1,800 acres across all of our farms. We specialize in ornamental trees. We also have a construction division that does installation and maintenance of any kind of landscapes contract.
Makes sense. Super. And you've been an Acumatica customer for about 4 years, maybe 4+ years.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that. So appreciate you being a customer. So tell us about how Acumatica is used there.
Yeah, so we're going into our 4th year of Acumatica now, and it's been a great asset to our company. Before Acumatica, we would have guys out in the field, and they would do something to a tree, like shift it to a new section, tag it for sale, and they would come back to the office and sit down at a computer station, input that into our ERP system. Now we have guys in the field using Chromebooks, tablets, phones, anything with a 4G connection, and they're actually just staying in the field, inputting any kind of data they need, and all that information is live, real time for us to use back in the office.
That's fantastic. That's great to hear. So I see that you brought a couple of sensors. Yep. I'm sure you folks have seen. This one is particularly the ones that we're using from a partner, C2S Tech, that we are working with, that's sourcing the sensors. So what you have there? You have the humidity sensor.
Yeah, so this is our humidity sensor right here, and then we also have a leaf wetness sensor here.
Okay.
So we can do all kinds of cool things with this. It integrates directly into Acumatica, so we can check the moisture content of a section of trees, and we can use Acumatica to see if a section needs more water or not, and we can also utilize things like fertilizer sensors to see if sections need more fertilizer, and that helps us with inventory purposes and all sorts of things like that.
Fantastic. So as we were actually looking at IoT, and we had several whiteboarding sessions with Josh and the team, one of the things we talked about is let's look at some examples of other companies doing this, right? And one pattern that we watched is a lot of the companies are actually doing these IoT sensors. They're everywhere, and they collect the data. Lots of data come in. And they try to make some sense out of the data. It kind of sits in its own bucket, right? Analyze the data. And that's where most of them stop. And one of the things that we were challenging ourselves is, hey, what type of decision making you can do on top of this data? How do you bring this into something like an ERP system? And that's where you talked about the humidity sensor. So typically what happens is when it reports that the water level is low or there's low humidity, the team says, oh, I got to put more water in. So run the irrigation system for a couple more hours, right? What happens? Your water bill is going to be that much high at the end of the season, end of the quarter. So let's say it's 20% more at the end of the quarter. That's what you're forecasting. Do you want to just run it and check, is it worth putting 20% more water if you know that the yield is going to be low because of other factors, right? Do you want to use that money for something more fruitful, pun intended there, right? And that's one of the things we're looking at, right? Where we want to bring the data in and do that forecasting exercise. And same thing with the fertilizer. If the nutrition values from the plants or the soil, is low, and you want to put more fertilizer to keep the plants alive, how much do you have in inventory? If you're going to put more, are you going to run out of those stock in like 2 months, or are you going to survive the entire season? Because the last thing you want to do is, before it's time for the critical season, you don't want to be out of food, and that's the worst thing to happen. Right? Yeah. So that's what we're looking at. We're not ready to show the data yet, and that's why I'm excited about the next few months working with you, because these things take a while to build a pattern. We got to collect enough data set. But we can't wait to get that information out to you and see what we learned from this project. Okay, so with that, I want to thank Josh for joining us today.
Thank you, Greg.
Really appreciate it, man. Thank you.